All right. Welcome to another episode of the Consistency Corner podcast. I'm excited to do a community spotlight today with my friend and previous client, Jennifer Clarkson, who is the owner of White Wave Bodywork. And we're going to get into A, what it was like to work together, but B, the main reason I wanted to have this conversation is Jennifer has more of a traditional brick and mortar business and decided to pivot a little bit and layer in and do some different things in the online space. And that was how we started working together. And one of the things that she pivoted in to doing was hosting events. And it was interesting as we worked together, and she hosted her first event in early 2023 and then hosted a second one later that year. Just the conversation around what all goes into hosting and putting on an event. And I think from the outside looking in, it also sometimes feels like it's no big deal, but there's a lot that goes into it. So we're going to pull back the curtain because we want you to know if that is something that you've thought about for your business and your revenue stream, or even as a marketing tool, what that looks like and what it takes to pull off an event like that, and some of the things that she learned along the way. So Jennifer, welcome. Thank you for being here. Can you tell everybody a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and how you got started with White Wave Bodywork?
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about this because I feel like it's been such a full year for me dealing with all of it and like trying to integrate new business stuff. So you've been a huge part of it. So it's exciting to get to like just rehash and talk about it,
Yeah.
learn the lessons. So fun. So thank you for having me. I am Jennifer Clarkson. In all my marketing, I go by Dr. Jen. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I'm a massage therapist, and I'm also a yoga instructor. So I combine those gifts to offer women's health specialty to people. Most of what we do in my office, I work with pregnant women, trying to keep them as happy and comfortable and healthy of a pregnancy as possible, giving pregnancy massage and doing a lot of physical therapy, release work, fascial release, just trying to make them comfortable. In the early postpartum period, we work with women trying to make that transitional journey as comfortable and easeful as possible. And then postpartum rehab is something that I am really passionate about and where my focus has been for the last 5 years. And this past year, I turned that postpartum rehab, pelvic floor rehab work into a full day retreat that Ruthie helped me really market and get out there to the world. So
Yeah. And you were mostly helping people in office. And when you and I first started working together and you had this idea for an event, the conversation was that basically, in terms of in office, you were at capacity. And I think a lot of service providers run into that,
yeah.
where they're like, I have a decent amount of referrals. I get good word of mouth traffic. People are finding me. People are booking me. But if I'm going to do something more in my business, it has to look different because I actually can't put more hours in the day to see more patients. So how did the idea of a retreat or an event kind of come about for you, and why was that something that you wanted to take on?
So I became really passionate about the postpartum rehab after having my girls. So, they talk about in business finding something that you're really driven and you're really passionate about and how you struggled with it and then sharing that with the rest. So that was really what I hear from the entrepreneurial standpoint, like, hey, take the thing that that you overcame and that you struggled with and you fixed and present it to the world. So I felt like that was a really good place for me to start with trying to take my business from the one-on-one model where my time is well, how do I say that? My income is limited by my one-on-one time available, and trying to take it into a group event. So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, how to make more money in a shorter amount of time, trying to address something that I think has been a struggle for me and that I've overcome. So I'm trying to combine all of those things that I learned in business and marketing and trying to turn it into this full day retreat. And
Yeah.
it was absolutely a lot more work than I thought it was going to be with a lot less payout. So
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing to know. And I think a lot of people inside the event space, and I can speak to this having helped some organizations with like 5K races and organizing events that like that, is that in the beginning, it's a lot of work for not a lot of money, if any money at all.
Hmm.
Because you're like getting your feet wet, you're
Yeah.
figuring it out, you're learning what the market wants, you're testing things. And so when you're trying to do that, on top of running your full-time business, it becomes like a juggling act, right?
Yeah, for sure. It was like, okay, I'm at this place where I have no extra time in my day, but I want to shift and pivot. I want to make my life easier. So I'm going to add like 30 more hours to the week.
Yeah.
See how that goes. But this was my year to try it out and see. And I'm still processing. I'm like, how would I make this something that would be effectively money making for me, where like it would be worth me putting in this time? Because as you know, it takes like 3 months to market an event like that you're trying to do. So I tried it twice this year. I had one in May and one in October, and that was too much because I had like 3 months of downtime, and that was
Yeah.
it.
Talk to me about that wave of emotions of like going into the event, the lead up of like, oh my gosh, is anybody even going to sign up? And then like you get to day of and it goes great and you're filled with energy. And you kind of have this like flip of like, I'm never doing this again to like, I'm going to do this again.
Absolutely. That's exactly what happened to me the first time around. I was like, this is so hard. Hardly anybody signed up. I'm like scrambling at the end to fill spaces in something that I think is like a huge value. And I'm like giving it away to friends and family, just saying, like, come fill the space because I have a professional photographer coming and I'm paying her and we're going to market this for the future. So, like, just fill some spots.
Mhm.
And then to doing it and being like, oh, I'm overjoyed. This was like fulfilling for me. This is exactly what I want to be doing. I just got to do it again and market it differently. And I was just gung ho to do the second one. So I did another one that year thinking that'll be great. And I shifted and changed and I made it have more practitioners, thinking that if I had more practitioners, there would be more of a draw. Since I'm only one on one, I don't do any like in person group classes that are small ticket items, which is where I think I like my big issue was with doing this is I need small ticket things that are outside of this one-on-one thing. Because even my one-on-one sessions at $125 for 60 minutes is not a small ticket item, right? Like I
Mhm.
need to have group stuff that people are familiar and are like, yeah, I want to pay her $500 to spend a full day with her, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm still, that is probably where my focus needs to go next. But I tried again without doing that, knowing that the second time, having more practitioners because I don't want to have those small ticket items. Like, because I can generate the one on one money with as much one on one time as I have, it
Mhm.
just doesn't resonate well with me to be like, oh, I'm going to go like teach this group class for $25 and at a yoga studio that's going to take half my profit. Like, I haven't
Yeah.
figured out how to make that happen. So I involved other practitioners. So I increased my expenditure by $500 for this retreat, having 5 different people help me, and then they marketed. And it turned out only 2 people that were involved actually pulled in people to be at the retreat the second time around. And that was Nicole, the host of the space, who
Mhm.
wasn't even somebody that I was like paying to be there, and another practitioner that like took the bulk of it. And she actually brought in continuing education units for practitioners like massage therapists.
Mhm.
So that's where I think when I saw you at the second retreat, I was like, so these continuing education units are really helpful because people will pay high ticket prices for their continuing ed to
Mhm.
get this information. And so when we can combine it with that field, and that's where you're talking about micro niching, like if I'm doing women's health, pelvic floor rehab for massage therapist, that's a pretty specific niche. And
Yeah.
so that actually really bulked up the attendance at the second event. So,
Yeah, and it's a micro niche in that it's very, very specific. But there is the opportunity that when you start talking to that really specific niche, other people will over here. We'll eavesdrop. We'll listen in, but
Yeah.
you've now focused specifically on exactly who you're talking to. And I think one of the interesting things is in that layering and collaboration, you were able to learn that continuing education credits became really valuable, that it's something that an audience was looking for. And I don't think you would have figured that out had you just tried to like rinse and repeat and do the same thing
Right.
over again. So I love that you tried new things because that gave you data and
Yeah,
information, right?
for sure.
Yeah. So, coming off the second retreat, you're like, okay, that was a lot. Marketing, that was a lot. The day of is a lot. I'm processing all the way I felt and what it meant for my business. So now that you're kind of planning the next year, are you thinking like, okay, maybe I do it once a year, maybe I do it at different times of the year? Where's your head at today?
Yeah, I feel like it's a once a year thing for me, and hopefully I get the momentum to do it again at this point.
Yeah.
Um, it's gotta, I've got to figure out a way for it to be profitable because I have zero interest in doing this if I'm not generating profit. Because it's
Yeah.
honestly, with social media, I've noticed that my anxiety as a human being rises when I'm on it, and
Mhm.
I don't have a desire to be on it. So the only reason I'm on it is really to market my business and keep myself relevant. Even my personal profiles, I post because then I can post my business stuff to my personal profile and people have been watching. So if I'm running a special at the office or anything like that, it's always been people pay attention to my personal profile, they pay no attention to my business profile, and I can like generate interest by sharing it to my personal profile. So when I was working with you, that was the first time I actually like started really doing anything with Instagram. It was always just
Mhm.
Facebook before that. So my anxiety rises and I'm like, this is just not making me happy as a person. And the whole point to me is to have improve my quality of life, more money, more time.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah. And
willing to make some sacrifice to get there, but I'm not sure how much sacrifice I'm willing.
yeah, for sure. And I think that's the thing with social media is that like it's a piece of the puzzle. And if it's a piece of the puzzle that gives you anxiety, then it's like, okay, how can I do this differently? How can I do this without posting 24 times a day and showing up 24/7 and sharing my life with the world? And it's actually since you and I worked together that I launched the 9 grid strategy. But like you're a perfect example of a person that could use a 9 grid because then you don't have to worry about what is up there anymore. And you have a professional presence and people can connect with you if they find you. And I know you did a lot of like reach out with your collaboration partners. You attended local events like Ray Alana, where your target market was going to be. So you were doing the things to attract new eyes on your business, but you're like, I don't have the time or desire to be posting all
Right.
day, every day.
Right. And I feel like it helped me get, so I have two practitioners that work in the office with me, massage therapists, and it helped me get their schedules full to attend those local events. So there's something there. It got the word
Mhm.
out about them and they're full. Where I'm booked until mid-January right now. Like I'm at the point where I'm so booked. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't see you, and I'm turning people away. So I'm like, this would be great to turn it into something that's a high ticket item and be like, here, let's fast track it. Let's do this. This is when it
Yeah.
is. But I just don't have the tech knowledge or desire to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think as a service provider who you're running a practice, you have an office, you have your own patients that you're seeing, like you do have to decide where your time and energy is best spent. And if it's spent on figuring out funnels and tech, and that's like making your head spin, that's not a good use of your time. And that's where we have to think about like everybody's zone of genius. And so many service providers have like this incredible gift that you've learned and you've built a business. And then you're like, but that other thing over there, that's not in my zone of genius.
Not it
And
at all. I'll have to never touch it again. But I can't figure out how to pay someone the amount of money that I would want to pay them and still make money on the thing that I'm marketing.
yeah, yeah. And that is something to figure out. And I think that's one of the reasons that business coaches I know will teach you like in the beginning, you have to do it yourself because you do have to understand what goes into it so that when you do go to hire somebody, if somebody is wanting to charge you like $5, and I think you ran into this in your website, like somebody's going to charge you a lower ticket price, but then they don't deliver what actually needed to be done. And so understanding what goes into it is helpful so that when you do go to make the hiring decision or the outsourcing decision, you can make better informed decisions.
Right.
And, I think for you, when I think about your event, I agree. I think once a year is probably enough. And then figuring out a calendar that you can rinse and repeat. Now you've done it twice, you've got some learning, you've got some data, so you could put a plan together. And maybe it's a longer runway that isn't so accelerated.
Right.
But because you have more time, you can space it out a little bit. So I think there's a lot of things that you could do there. But let's talk a little bit more about this micro niching.
Okay.
So interestingly, you said, you're really passionate about helping women with postpartum pelvic floor health, which I would imagine when you went to physical therapy school, you didn't know you were going to be passionate about that. So that in and of itself in your practice has become kind of a micro niche. And that came from your own journey. And so I think it's really important as business owners to revisit those passions and revisit those missions and visions on a regular basis because they change and they evolve. Can you talk a little bit about how, when you opened your own practice to where you are today, how those kind of missions and visions have evolved for you?
Yeah, for sure. I started off as it was still massage was my intro, right? So I was a massage therapist for 10 years before I went to PT school. And what I loved about massage was trying to figure out what was wrong with everybody and trying to fix it, make it feel better. And so I
Mhm.
thought PT would be a really good segue to that, to take that farther. Felt like massage bred dependence on me, and I wanted to make people independent. So teach them how to better themselves and continue that care on their own. So I
Yeah.
started off really as a sports massage therapist, and I went to a lot of sporting events. So I am well versed in marketing at events, and that was something I did for a very long time, and that's something I haven't done forever because after I went to PT school, I actually kept this business alive and had other people working for me, and I would work part time through some of PT school. I only took a year off because I had to do my rotations, and that was taking me all over the U.S. So, kept it alive with other people working here, and then came back and just did part time work here as I worked full time at an orthopedic group for 4 years. And
Mhm.
so, it took having my kids for me to be like, hey, I don't want to go to work for somebody else for $30 an hour when I have my doctorate and I can do this all myself. So I decided to jump full force back into this and have the specialty as women's health, because in PT school, I did know that there was a specialty of pelvic floor and women's health. And I was like, I think that that's where I want to go with this, because I've always done pregnancy massage as a massage therapist, and I've
Mhm.
multiple births, and I really like that environment. I like working with women athletes, and I knew that about myself. So it went from sports massage in general to working with female athletes to going through my own pelvic health struggles and being like, this is it, this is absolutely where I want to be. So I had an inkling in PT school that that's what I wanted to do, and then after having my children was like, yep, for sure, this is where it's at.
Yeah, yeah, and that you saw a need and you were like, "Okay, I see this need. I have the skills that I can fulfill this need." And then now it's just figuring out how to shift your messaging so
Mm-hmm.
that the right people are being attracted to you. Because I know that was one of the things that we talked about, that you were getting a lot of referrals from the practice that you worked with previously, which were maybe not postpartum
Right.
women. They were not women needing help with pelvic floor health. So,
Absolutely not everybody that I work one-on-one with is a female athlete, right? Like a
right.
lot of them are the older population of women that are having the current prolapse and urinary incontinence syndrome and all kinds of postmenopausal stuff. So all of that is not necessarily like that postpartum micro niche that I want to be, but it's still women's health. It's still
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so talk to me a little bit about how women's health and the postpartum health, how that has helped guide your decisions and your plans around content. How has that micro niche in and of itself helped you narrow down what type of content you're creating, whether it's emails or you've done some Instagram lives with different practitioners, and even the lead magnets and the resources that you're sharing, has that helped you figure out what to talk about and what to create?
for sure. It like there's so much to talk about. If you just wanted to talk about like making bodies feel better with physical therapy, you can like go piece by piece, and there's just a whole world to talk about. With going down smaller, with micro niching down into that actual content, it's like you're able, I don't know, let me see. I'm able to talk about things in a way that I come up with more ideas when it's just specifically like urinary incontinence. We developed the whole like, what do you want to target together? We did this. I'm sorry, I'm talking in circles. Um, Coming up with my freebie for
Mhm.
marketing the event. I had no freebies available when I started working with you. I was just like, I want to do this event. How do I do it? And you were like, you got to have a freebie. What should it be about? And so talking about all the content that I have in the live event that I was putting together, we picked urinary incontinence.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's still the right thing to pick. I don't know if I will continue with that, but it's a great freebie, has great content in it.
Mhm.
Um, I think it turns a lot of people off to get like thrown under the bus, like at their freebie. Like when I put it out there at like on a poster, people are like, "Oh no, that's not me. I don't pee my pants." But
Right.
I might have women's health problems, but I don't pee my pants, so that I don't need this. So I think it turns a lot of people off because I'm calling them out for some from
Mhm.
a problem. But definitely like 1 in 3 women has it. So
Yeah, so chances are
so
someone reading this
it's
does.
probably happening whether they want to admit it in public or not. I don't think I answered your question, but it
Well,
absolutely helps to have a smaller pool to pull from to talk about, because there's
Mhm.
still so much rich content, and you're reaching somebody who you actually want to reach, instead of
Yeah.
just saying like, "Hey, I'm a physical therapist, come see me."
Yes.
Nobody hears that because there's 25,000 physical therapists in the world,
Yes, and the
or
interesting
way
thing
more.
about the lead magnet or the free resource, you put a lot of work into it. It is filled with great information. And we used it as a lead magnet early on to grow your email list of people that might be interested in this local event.
Right.
But the cool thing about that resource is you can use it for years.
Right.
And maybe you don't continue to use it as as a lead magnet. Maybe you just use it as a value add resource that
Right.
somebody gets when they're on your email list. And now you have a framework of a free resource. If you come up with another idea that's not speaking to that specific problem, you still have this framework of a lead magnet to be able to kind of like go off of. And so, there's so many business owners that I talk to about marketing and visibility, and people ask all these questions, and they're always like, okay, well, should I run ads, or should I do this, or should I do that? And it's always like, okay, but where are they going to go? Where do you want them to go? What do
Mhm.
you want them to do? And so the whole point of the lead magnet is we want you to go to this page. We want you to put in your email address, which is an opt-in, and saying, I am interested in this information.
Right.
And, it's interesting because you and I talked about this, and obviously I'm in the marketing space. So I study marketing. I get marketed to like 10,000 times a day. And I remember we were having a conversation about email marketing, and you were like, somebody told me I'm emailing them too much. So it was kind of like even a mindset thing that we had to work through of like, what are we doing? What are our business goals? Why are we doing it? How do we come up with strategies that feel good, even though they might be different? And so kind of even making some adjustments. Can you talk a little bit about how that was like maybe a learning process for you?
I kind of want to start with the freebie thing because it triggered like it's been so helpful to have that freebie, because it's not just for that event, right? It's just telling people about urinary incontinence, and then they
Mhm.
get on my list, and then they're targeted for urinary incontinence stuff. So um, it's been so helpful, because after doing that and being like, okay, I need to collaborate more with people, I need to like get on more online visibility. So I've been reaching out to different people, and they're like, "Okay, give us your freebie. Sign up, like what is your niche, and talk about this." And I have something to put on their website and share. And so that's very helpful for me to do more collaborations to try to build that list
Mhm.
further for the future. And it has been very successful. Well, to me, I think very successful. When I started marketing stuff with you, I think I was at like 300 Instagram followers, and now I'm like up to 6. I think it's close to 6. And I had, I don't know, I think it's increased at least 200 people on my actual email list. So I think that's been super helpful for like development for the future for trying to continue to do this for sure. Um, and I wanted to say that, but then I forgot what your question was.
Yeah, no, my other question was about creating a strategy that works for your bandwidth, but maybe stretches you a little bit. So, like, we were talking about the number of emails that we were sending leading up to an event. And, like, I remember you telling me somebody on your list was like, whoa, calm it with the emails. And so, although, like, I explained, hey, this is the why behind this, these are the reasons that we're sending these emails, but like, let's pivot, let's adjust a little bit. And so I was able to give you a more customized strategy for your business goals and your bandwidth and your audience versus just like a blanket, well, this is how you do a launch, you know?
We reeled it in a little bit based on that feedback and how I was feeling about the feedback. I think we only took like 2 emails off of the list, but it was like, I feel like this is too salesy. I don't want to feel so salesy. And we just revamped it a little bit and took a couple of the emails off and pivoted, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And adjusted. And I think that's important when you are creating a plan, whether it's emails or social media or a website that you're measuring click rate, to look at the data, to look at what the data is telling you. And one of the things I know that we worked on quite a bit was also like tags and thinking about your email list and being able to segment and tag people so you knew who on the list was truly interested, so that then some of those emails that we sent out only went to the people who had been clicking,
Right.
only went to the people that were like raising their hand saying like, hey, I'm interested in this type of information, versus like everybody who was on your list, including men who didn't need to know this information.
Right. I think that was the person who reached out to me, just knowing the situation. She was the person that's clicked on everything. I was like, well, if you don't want that many emails, stop clicking on everything.
Yeah, you're showing me that you're interested. So
Right.
yeah, it's just something that like I know from a lot of business owners, and this is one of the things that we were kind of talking about with figuring out the tech, like those types of things. You're not doing it every day. It's not something that you spend your amount of time doing.
It
So to
makes
sit
it
down,
so hard because
sit
I
down
don't
and
remember
figure it
when I
out.
have to do it again.
Yeah,
The
and even if
is
you
still on my website. It's still up there at the top of the header because I don't know how to change that. It's like October 22nd. It's currently December.
got to pick a new date, and then we can change it. Time. So, well, okay, Jennifer, this was a fun conversation. And I think if anybody, number one, if anybody is interested in women's pelvic floor health, which I learned a ton at working with you about how much there is to know and things that you can do to take care of your body, follow White Wave Bodywork on social and connect with Jennifer there. But before we wrap up, I do want to ask you a couple just fun get to know you questions that we do on some of these unfiltered episodes. And the first one I always love to know is when you have some downtime, which I know as an entrepreneur and mom is not often, but when you do you have a go-to bingeable TV show that you would recommend?
I absolutely love The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I've watched the whole series like 4 times. The whole
Oh, I will have to check it out. I've never watched that.
I love it so much. It's very vulgar. You'll learn a little
Okay.
about me and that I don't mind vulgarity, but I love it. It's funny and it's like a period piece, so it takes you back to the 1950s and 60s in New York City, and I just like makes my heart happy.
Fun. I'll have to check it out. Okay, well, along with your bingeable show, what's your current go-to snack?
Current go-to snack is probably chips and salsa. I'm like
Okay.
salsa fiend. So me and my husband have been like, if I can stay up later than my children, which is hard for me because I do bedtime stories and fall asleep in the middle of them, then we will watch a show and eat chips and salsa lately.
Perfect. That sounds fun. All right. So along with your go-to snack, I always love to ask, what is your go-to adult beverage and non-adult beverage?
Mm, adult beverage. I like my mixed drinks. I always think that if I were not in this field, I would have been like a mixologist that did.
Ooh, fun. Very
So
fun.
I will say that probably my favorite is gin with elderflower liqueur and a little bit of club soda and some cucumber and mint. That would be
Oh, that sounds very fancy.
it. Yes. But like easy peasy go to probably ginger beer and whiskey. And then non-adult beverage is probably unfortunately coffee. I just coffee. It's one of those urinary incontinence like kickers, and man, that caffeine just kills me. So every time I'm talking to people about urinary irritants and bladder irritants, I'm like, guys, my heart goes out to you, but like quit the coffee for a minute and see if it changes it. If it does and it's affecting your life in a way that like improves the quality of life, here's some alternatives, but
Yeah.
feel you because it's hard. All those
Yeah.
bladder irritants are like liquor, like alcohol, caffeine, all the good
Yeah.
stuff.
All the
Yeah,
fun stuff. Yes.
chocolate. I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, I
Yes.
get to be the bearer of bad news, but yeah, I love my coffee.
Yeah. Good deal. All right. And then my last question is we love to talk about travel. So I always like to ask if you have an upcoming trip that you're looking forward to or a recent trip that you've taken that you would recommend.
Mm. And we went to the Keys. That was my recent trip. We were in the Keys for a week, but that was like a work trip for my husband. It wasn't really recommendable. But I do love the Keys when it's an adult trip. And no, I don't have anything in the mix right now. Still trying to sell a house. Just renovated one, so we're still doing that game. That was
Yes.
my summer. That was my summer plan that you were with me along the way
Yes.
after that May one, and still my house isn't listed. So
That is
everything's taking a little bit longer than it
well, you
should.
know what? You put on 2 workshops and you renovated a house this year. So you had your plate very full, which means you definitely need to get a trip scheduled on your calendar for
I want a staycation. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to stay
Yes.
home.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, this was such a fun conversation. Thank you for being here and unfiltered about the process of putting on an event and marketing your business. And like I said, you guys check out White Wave Bodywork on Instagram and connect with Jennifer. And thank you again. This was a fun conversation.
All right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I think you're doing good things.